Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, and we're taking a look at the sine, the cosine, and the tangent ratios. But right now, we're going to talk more about finding angles. Today, we've really concentrated on finding sides up until now. Now we're going to use our trig ratios to find angles. So, solve for x in each of the following. Please round your final answers to 2 decimal places. So, x in this one is an angle. Now, nothing changes as far as I think in how you should organize your thoughts. I think you should find your 90. I think you should, from there, find your hypotenuse. Because no matter what I do, if I use Pythagorean theorem or if I use trig, that hypotenuse is the hypotenuse. And it's good to know which is which. Now, there is an angle. And I've been working with one young man in class today, and I've actually got him to start circling the angle because then he really sees it. And now he knows that this is opposite. There's nothing there, so we don't need it. And this is adjacent. And there is something there. There's a 10 meters. So the question now is, what do we want and what do we have? Well, we have hypotenuse, we have adjacent, and we want an angle. So that says trig to me. And it says sine, cosine, or tan. Now, I'm also working with the kids in class today, and they're understanding that they just have to know. If I have adjacent and hypotenuse, they have to know that that's cosine. So it's cosine of this unknown angle, and that's going to be adjacent over hypotenuse. They have to know that. Now, if that takes writing out, so sine is opposite over hypotenuse, cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, TOA at the top of every page in every question, then that's fine. But we need to know this. So let's put in our numbers. So cos of x equals 10 over 17. Now, we talked about this at length yesterday, and this is a different question. This question, they're giving you a side length ratio. So they're giving you a ratio, and they want you to come up with an angle. So we have to use what's called the inverse function. We have to go the other way. So in other words, I'm looking to use the inverse of cosine on that ratio. And that is going to give me angle x. And I wrote that x really weird, but hey, that's life. So using my calculator, I do 10 divided by 17 equals shift cosine, and I come up with an answer of approximately 53.97 degrees. And that means that this is that angle measurement. And that's the way that works. Now, I want to reiterate, and what that means is I want to say it again and again and again, what's actually happening here. So pause the video if you still want to write this down, but when you're done, come on back, and this is what I'm going to talk to you about. What we're actually doing when we use our calculators is we're taking an angle measurement and we're putting it through a function like sine, and what that does is it gives you a side ratio. And for the sine ratio, it's the opposite side over the hypotenuse. When we take a ratio back to an angle, that's called the inverse. And it looks like that. So to get a ratio, you take the sine of an angle, you put it in your calculator, and it gives you the ratio. Going the other way, you take the inverse of the ratio, and it gives you the angle that has that. That's the way that works, back and forth. So that's why we're doing this. Let's look at the next example. Here's my hypotenuse. Here's my angle. Here's my opposite. What uses opposite and hypotenuse? Sine. So it's going to be sine of x equals 95 over 200. Notice I'm after an angle measurement. This is a side length ratio, so we have to use the inverse. Angle x will equal sine inverse 95 divided by 200. Notice I never write out the decimal. I let the calculator do the work. And I come up with an answer of approximately 28.36 degrees. Pause the video. Finish writing that in. Moving down to the next one. Taking a look at what I have. Here's my hypotenuse. There's my opposite. There's my adjacent. What uses opposite and adjacent? Tangent. Tangent of x is 15 over 8. Notice I need to find an angle measurement, so I need to use the inverse. So angle x is going to equal the inverse of tan. 15 divided by 8. 15 divided by 8 equals, second function, tan, 61.93 approximately. And those are in degrees. And by the way, if your calculator's not in degrees, you won't get anywhere close to these answers, and you need to fix that. So I'll stop this video here, noticing that on the back there is practice and questions at the bottom. Off you go. Make sure you get it all right.